Okay, here we're going over early sequencing in my Temur guide. Let's start it off here. Looks like we have a Temur mirror playing against an Attune into an island, which probably have a red source, probably have a Spirable Canal or a Rootbound Crag. So here on our turn 2, we have an interesting decision. Really, sometimes I've seen it be a lot closer which one to play. Generally, if you don't have like a 4-drop in your hand or multiple 2-drops, especially on the play, and even in a Temur mirror to boot, I would almost pretty much always go with the Long Tusk Cub. In this hand, we can still cast a turn 4 Glorybringer if we play the Long Tusk Cub and we draw another land. We can play the Servant next turn, or we can play a Rogue Refiner. Thinking about our opponent's plays, we have double Ether Hub. So if he, for instance, plays his own Long Tusk Cub, if we play our Rogue Refiner, we actually are only going to have 3 energy and can't attack. But we can actually go second Ether Hub for 2 energy, Servant up to 4 energy, which can allow us to actually attack through a Cub next turn without killing it, which is pretty nice because on the play we really want to get our Long Tusk Cub rolling. And for those reasons, we're just going to play the Long Tusk Cub. Like, if I had a Chandra in my hand, I think I would just always play the Servant here because we could maybe go for a turn 3 Chandra, which is pretty disgusting in game 1 before there's no Chandra's defeats in play. Opponent plays a Cub, and we draw Chandra. So, funny enough, playing the Servant might have been insane, but we didn't have the Chandra, so that's fine. So here, this is actually an interesting turn because I think that all 3 of our options are viable. The most basic thing, I don't think many players would do this. This is like the obvious bad play, is to play Harness Lightning. And the reason that that's bad is that I'm the aggressor here. It doesn't use my mana very well because not like Rogue Refiner tries to find me a land. Servant gives me extra mana later. And if I play a Servant, I can attack with my Cub anyway. Like, when I'm on the play and I've got a Chandra and a Glorybringer and an active Cub in the Temur mirror, I'm so happy. But it's just a weak play to kind of use my turn into something that doesn't really help me. Because pretty much I can always Harness Lightning the Cub later. I'll have enough energy. And I can get through with my Cub anyway. So that's pretty much going to go, do we play Servant, do we play Rogue Refiner? If we play Servant, that almost guarantees us a Chandra on the next turn or a Glorybringer. But right now, notice I have no forests. I have no forests or mountains in play. So about half of my lands come into play tapped at the moment. Maybe a little bit more even come into play tapped. So I can't really rely on drawing a land that comes into play on tap next turn when it comes to making this play, which makes the Servant play a little worse. The other thing about playing Servant here is that it's pretty weak to a Magma Spray, assuming my opponent has another 2-drop, which isn't really something I should actively play around. In the Temur mirror, normally you shouldn't necessarily play around cards that are like 1 or 2 ofs, like Confiscation Coup or Magma Spray, so that's only just a tiny tidbit, but my hand is really good, and Rogue Refiner kind of allows me to hit a land, doubles my chance of hitting a land drop on the next turn, essentially. But weirdly enough, if I play the Rogue Refiner, I can't actually attack with Long Tusk Cub. And the thing about my hand being so good here is that I think playing the Rogue Refiner is just the best play because it increases the chance that I'm going to be hitting land drops. And like, for instance, if I play a Servant, if he's got a Magma Spray, it's pretty bad. Though if he only has 7 other 2-drops without having 2 red sources in play, so I'm not that afraid of it. But because I just want to hit my land drop, that's why I'm going to play the Rogue Refiner. Which I think this is kind of a questionable play and interesting what other people think. But I like the Rogue Refiner here because it's also like kind of presses my advantage a little bit more. The Servant is more like, well, if he doesn't have a Magma Spray and if I don't draw a land, then I get to like play a Chandra and plus it. If he plays another 3-drop though, like a Rogue Refiner, or even a Whirler Virtuoso, I'm kind of in a weird spot because then I have to kind of leave my Long Tusk Cub back in order to protect the Chandra, and then if he's got removal, of course, he can attack the Chandra. You know, if I don't leave anything back, say I go Servant this turn, Chandra next turn, his Cub's probably going to be too big because he's going to attack me, plus it, Harness Lightning that. If he plays a Rogue Refiner, then even if I don't leave my Cub back to block it, he could kill my Chandra with a Chandra of his own, which would just be a travesty. So we're just going to play the Rogue Refiner, which is pretty reasonable, and we actually draw Basic Mountain. So now we're pretty well set up. Even though I miss an attack here, which seems pretty bad, yeah, of course, this is an interesting spot because my opponent, doesn't necessarily have a way of interacting with Chandra, which is normally the case. They have to do it with creatures. But like this, if this mountain was 2 cards underneath, we'd be really happy that we'd be playing the Rogue Refiner. So that's pretty straightforward sequence. Now on my next turn, I can play Servant and Harness Lightning, or I can play Chandra and plus it to kill whatever he plays. And he plays a Rogue Refiner. And now, obviously if I played the Servant, I would still be in good shape. But the fact that we got our land, and it's an untapped land to boot, like that's the thing about the Rogue Refiner is, since so many of my lands come into play tapped, I just don't want to get behind the 8 ball and start missing land drops because subsequent lands come into play tapped. So now we're in a pretty interesting spot where he is attacking with a Cub here, which means I can actually double block it and then play Chandra on a clean board. I think what I opt to do actually is to just take it, and then I can play Chandra plus it for Harness Lightning and kill the Cub. So that's just, a little tidbit on early game Temur. We pretty much had the same curve and how to optimize it. So that's how I would play that.